The story begins with a quiet but telling development that few outside a close circle initially noticed. A powerful cattle baron, known for his vast landholdings and disciplined control over livestock markets, agreed to an arranged marriage that was framed to him as purely practical. Those involved in the arrangement described the prospective bride in dismissive terms, emphasizing that she was not attractive, not socially impressive, and unlikely to play any visible role in his life or business. For the baron, whose daily decisions involved numbers, contracts, and control, this information only reinforced his belief that the marriage would be a formality rather than a partnership. Sources close to the family say he approached the union with emotional distance, convinced that beauty, personality, or personal connection were irrelevant to his success. In his view, wealth had already secured his place in society, and the marriage was simply another obligation to fulfill tradition and stabilize alliances. He did not ask many questions, nor did he attempt to learn more about the woman beyond what was casually told to him. Assumptions, once formed, seemed sufficient. What makes this development notable is not the arrangement itself, but the mindset behind it. The baron reportedly believed that appearances defined worth and that silence signaled weakness. He expected a submissive presence, someone who would remain in the background while his empire continued as before. Insiders describe his confidence as unshakable, rooted in years of unchecked authority and public admiration. At the time, no one anticipated consequences beyond a routine marriage announcement. There were no dramatic expectations, no rumors of change, and no indication that this decision would ripple beyond private walls. Yet, even in these early moments, observers now note subtle warning signs: the ease with which judgment replaced curiosity, and the certainty with which power dismissed potential. What followed, according to those same sources, would soon turn these early assumptions into a source of shock and reflection. In the days following the marriage, attention gradually shifted from the arrangement itself to the unexpected presence of the bride within the cattle baron's world. Initially, her behavior drew little notice. She spoke selectively, listened carefully, and observed routines without interference. To many around her, this quiet approach confirmed earlier assumptions. However, those working closely within the estate began to sense something different. She asked precise questions, not out of curiosity, but clarity. Her interest in grazing patterns, seasonal losses, and worker disputes hinted at deeper understanding rather than casual concern. According to individuals familiar with daily operations, she quickly identified inefficiencies that had long been accepted as unavoidable. She questioned outdated methods, suggested modest changes, and backed her ideas with logic rather than emotion. What surprised managers most was her grasp of numbers. She reportedly analyzed expense records, negotiated supplier terms, and highlighted profit leaks that had gone unnoticed for years. These actions were not dramatic or confrontational, but they were effective. The cattle baron himself remained distant at first, interpreting her involvement as temporary enthusiasm. Yet results began to speak. Minor adjustments she proposed led to measurable improvements in productivity and worker morale. Disputes were resolved faster, losses decreased. Even external partners noted a shift in how negotiations were approached, marked by calm confidence and strategic patience. What challenged long-held beliefs was not a single moment, but a pattern. The woman once dismissed as insignificant demonstrated consistency, discipline, and foresight. Staff members began seeking her opinion informally, valuing her fairness and clarity. Elders within the community reportedly expressed quiet approval, noting her respect for tradition combined with practical thinking. As these developments unfolded, it became increasingly difficult to ignore her influence. The narrative that had surrounded her before the marriage started to unravel. What was once described as weakness now appeared to be restraint. What was labeled as simplicity revealed depth. The gap between expectation and reality widened daily, setting the stage for a realization that would soon confront the cattle baron directly. As the weeks turned into months, the transformation within the cattle baron's life and business became impossible to dismiss. The shock he experienced was not sudden, but cumulative, built from repeated moments where his wife's judgment proved accurate and his own assumptions proved flawed. Decisions he once made alone were now quietly improved through her insight. Market risks were anticipated earlier, long-term planning became more balanced, and relationships with workers and partners grew noticeably stronger. Observers noted that stability replaced volatility, and growth followed discipline rather than force. Those close to the Baron say the realization was deeply unsettling. He had measured people by surface impressions for most of his life, believing authority came from dominance and value from appearance. The woman he underestimated had altered the foundation of his thinking without ever demanding recognition. Her influence did not rely on control, but on consistency and competence. This contrast forced him to confront an uncomfortable truth. His greatest blind spot had been his certainty. Community response further amplified the impact. Elders, traders, and neighboring landowners began acknowledging the wife's role in recent successes. Invitations were extended to her for consultations and discussions that traditionally excluded women. While she remained composed, her presence subtly redefined expectations. The marriage that once seemed transactional became a symbol of partnership built on mutual respect. Analysts who later reflected on the story highlighted its broader significance. It was not merely about wealth or marriage, but about the cost of underestimation. The cattle baron's shock evolved into reflection, and reflection into change. Reports suggest he publicly credited his wife during a key business gathering, a rare gesture that signaled humility rather than power. By the time the story spread beyond private circles, its lesson was clear. True strength often arrives quietly, unnoticed by those too confident to look closely. The cattle baron did not just gain a partner, he gained perspective. And in doing so, he learned that assumptions, once challenged by reality, can either break a person or rebuild them stronger than before.